America has done something so insane that this needs to be talked about. I have been meaning to cover this insane topic for days, and I finally got the chance to do so. So apparently, President Trump's administration bought Intel stocks back in August 2025, and since then they have been printing insane amounts of money on it. This is officially from President Trump himself on his Truth Social post. Quote unquote, I made USA $45 billion. We cannot deny the fact that the federal government of all entities just made one of the best trades on Wall Street this entire year. This is so funny because Geiger Capital is literally saying you are bearish. Trump is literally posting his stock gains on the timeline, and you are still bearish. To visualize this even further, if you actually pull up the TradingView chart and look at what happened, the picture becomes even crazier. Intel had been getting absolutely destroyed leading up to that moment, and the stock was down 74% from its highs. Everyone thought Intel was finished, that it could never compete with AMD, Nvidia, or TSMC ever again. And right at the very bottom of that chart, you can see a clean little candle in August 2025, marking the exact moment the Trump administration stepped in and bought. From that single point forward, the stock has gone almost straight up. It is now up 115% in April alone, and almost around 42% since the latest earnings report, which I am going to talk about further in detail. Now, of course, when you see the Trump administration making such huge gains, profits worth billions, you start wondering what else they are holding. So if you actually pull up the White House asset management portfolio, you can see that Intel is not the only position they are holding. They also own MP Materials for rare earth minerals. And this is interesting because President Trump has a meeting scheduled in China in May where he is possibly going to negotiate rare earth minerals as China controls the majority of the supply, according to analysts. They also own Lithium Americas, ticker symbol LAC for the lithium supply chain. Then they also have positions in the iShares Aerospace and Defense ETF, and they hold short-term treasury bonds for a bit of stability on the side. So as you can see, every single position they took is in the green, but Intel is the one carrying the entire portfolio on its back. Now, a question may occur in your mind: why did the US government suddenly become a stockholder in Intel of all companies? And the answer is much simpler than you think. It is simply the issue of national security. Last summer, the administration realized that America had become dangerously dependent on Taiwan for advanced semiconductor manufacturing. If anything ever went wrong between China and Taiwan, the entire American tech industry would basically grind to a complete halt overnight. So instead of just handing Intel a subsidy and hoping for the best, the government did something nobody expected. They took an actual equity stake. Now, if I show you the even bigger picture to make you understand the significance of this situation, then you need to see this chart. Intel just hit its highest stock price since the year 2000. We are talking about a level that Intel has not touched in 26 years. The last time Intel was trading at these prices, the iPhone did not even exist, and a lot of you watching this video right now were probably not even born yet. We are witnessing a generational breakout, and the thing is, it is not just Intel. The broader semiconductor sector is having one of the best years in its entire history. Look at these year-to-date numbers from Morning Brew that came out a few days ago. SanDisk is up 482%, and Intel is up 201%. I do not even want to talk about SanDisk because that is a whole another beast. Anyways, the point was to make you realize that we are living in a new era, and this new S&P 500 all-time high rally is also being led by tech and semiconductor stocks. Now let us talk about why this is actually happening fundamentally, and this is where it gets really juicy. Intel just dropped earnings that absolutely shocked Wall Street to its core. They beat revenue estimates by $1 billion, and they beat their second quarter guidance by another $2 billion. They beat earnings per share estimates by 2,800%. Yes, you heard that right, 2,800%. Their gross margins came in 3% higher than expected, and on top of all of that, they raised guidance for the next quarter as well. Intel stock jumped more than 15% in after-hours trading the day they reported, and this print was so strong that it actually pulled AMD up alongside it, because investors realized that if Intel is selling out of inventory, that means CPU demand across the entire industry is way bigger than anyone had been modeling. The CEO of Intel basically came out on the earnings call and dropped a series of statements that lit a fire under every chip stock on the market. He said demand is running ahead of supply for all their businesses, especially Xeon server CPUs. Then he further expands saying that the CPU is reasserting itself as the indispensable foundation of the entire AI era. He pointed out that the ratio of CPU to GPU usage in data centers used to be 1 to 8, and now it is already 1 to 4, and he expects it to keep moving toward parity or even better than that. This is insane as data centers demand itself is on huge rise. And then he dropped maybe the most important line of all. He said Intel's 18A node yields are now running ahead of internal projections. Now, if you do not know what 18A means, let me break it down really simply. 18A is Intel's next generation chip manufacturing process. It is their answer to TSMC's 3 nanometer and 2 nanometer technology. For years now, Intel has been embarrassingly behind TSMC in manufacturing. That single fact is the core reason they lost so much market share to AMD and others over the last decade. However, this statement changes things a lot. Intel is basically saying that they are officially back in the game. Now, to further expand and help you understand just how insane CPU demand is, check this post out. Both Intel and AMD raised CPU prices again in March. The total price increase for 2026 is now sitting around 15% across the board. And lead times, which is how long you actually have to wait to get a chip after you order it, have stretched from 1 or 2 weeks all the way to as long as 6 full months. This tells you the demand is so completely out of control that even though Intel is making chips as fast as they physically can, customers are still waiting half a year just to receive them. This is what economists call pricing power. When you can raise prices and customers still line up to buy, you are in a very good business. And right now, Intel is in possibly the best business environment they have been in since the late 90s. Things actually got so crazy that Intel started doing something they would absolutely never normally do, and people are absolutely fine with that. They started selling chips that would normally be classified as scrap or low expectation chips. Basically, when Intel manufactures processors, not every single chip comes out perfect. Some have minor defects or some do not hit performance targets, and historically those would just get thrown into the bin and forgotten about. But right now, customers are so desperate for any CPUs they can possibly get their hands on that they are actively buying these lower bin chips that would normally be discarded. Intel reportedly boosted their effective yields just by selling stuff they would normally throw out. Think about how insane that is. The demand is so massive that defective chips are now considered valuable inventory. And then we have the data center story, which might honestly be the biggest one of all. According to KeyBank analysts in a report from January 2026, both Intel and AMD have completely sold out their server CPU inventories for all of 2026. Yes, meaning the entire year is gone, completely sold out. Hyperscalers like Amazon, Microsoft, Google, Meta, and Oracle have basically locked up every single chip these companies can possibly produce next year already. NVIDIA's Rubin series chips are also sold out, and AMD recorded record sales of EPYC Turin server processors in Q3 2025. The whole industry is sitting in a structural shortage that will not get resolved anytime soon. But wait, there is even more. Apple, the single biggest tech company on the entire planet, is reportedly considering using Intel along with Samsung to manufacture chips for its devices inside the United States. This is absolutely massive news for anyone who follows the chip industry. Apple has been almost exclusively dependent on TSMC in Taiwan for years now. If they actually shift even a small portion of their chip production to Intel, we are talking about tens of billions of dollars in additional revenue flowing into the company. The day this news broke, Intel stock jumped over 13% in a single session and crossed $100 for the first time in years, hitting an all-time high, and this was not just a rumor from some random anonymous source on Twitter. This was reported by Bloomberg, which is one of the most credible financial news outlets in the entire world. Now, before I wrap this whole story up, I want to take a quick moment to talk about something for the people who actually want to get this kind of breakdown in real time. I run a Telegram channel called 0x Concepts. It is where I post real-time updates the moment news drops, with my own take, my own charts, and my own analysis attached. And this is entirely free, so you don't have to pay a dime to join, and it will always be free. The link to join is sitting right there in the description below this video. And on top of everything I just covered, Intel has now announced that it is joining the Terafab project alongside Tesla, SpaceX, and Elon Musk's xAI. The goal of Terafab is to produce 1 full terawatt of compute per year for AI and robotics applications. Intel's role in this partnership is to provide chip design, fabrication, and packaging at scale to help support that mission. So basically, Elon Musk himself is now relying on Intel to help power the next generation of artificial intelligence and humanoid robots. If you had told someone 2 years ago that Elon Musk would be partnering with Intel of all companies for AI chips, they would have laughed you straight out of the room. But here we are in 2026, and that is now the reality on the ground. So when you actually stack all of this together and then put Intel next to AMD on a chart, the story starts to line up perfectly as well. Two of the biggest CPU manufacturers are now basically leading the S&P 500 all-time highs rally, and both of them are already up hundreds of percent from their lows. However, with Intel's recent massive partnership announcement and the possibility of Apple using them as well, many smart money names have been quietly rotating out of AMD and into Intel over the last few months. They see the value gap, and they are positioning ahead of what they believe is obvious.